But again, my name is Lauren Cosrow. I'm the faculty librarian here and chair of the assessment committee. Christopher.
I'm Christopher Clem, faculty over in hospitality.
So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you to everyone who's listening to this later and catching up on some of the content that we are covering today. So today we're really, we've taken a moment already in one of our past open forums to really kind of celebrate the successes of this semester, but I just wanted to open again by saying thank you all for your participation in this work this semester and all the hard work that we were able to accomplish. I've sent this out in emails and have said this, but I'm really, really proud of the work that we were able to accomplish. And I'm also really excited about the work that we are moving forward with for next semester. So this last open forum, it's kind of crazy that's the last one of the semester already, but this last open forum, we're going to be taking a look forward and we're going to be talking about kind of the project plan as a whole, but then also really specifically, the goal of today is to communicate the professional development plan for next semester and talk a little bit about the stipend deliverables. And then at the very end, the last slide, we'll have those really specific dates. So if you're a person that wants to get dates on your calendar, kind of have dates blocked off, we will be sharing those with you. And so please feel free to ask questions. We'll open space at the end as well, but that's kind of the goal today is to just give you a look of where we're moving forward and share some of those more specific details regarding the stipend, the deliverables, and then the dates. Thank you, Christopher. So we opened up our first faculty open forum at the very beginning of the semester, sharing kind of this model for managing complex change. So this model, we've been sharing just a piece of it throughout this semester, which is this idea that for successful change initiative, you need all of these different pieces, right? A clear vision for where we're going, the skills, incentives for the work to be done, resources to support that work, and a very clear action plan. So we've been sharing, pieces of that this semester, and just to reaffirm that idea of a vision, right? This clear idea of where we're heading with this work is a systematic, sustainable structure for student learning outcomes assessment at both the program and the general education outcomes level in academic affairs. So we have this very, very clear idea of where we're going, this vision for what this work is going to accomplish, and then some of these other pieces we're going to touch on today in terms of some of the resources and the action plan of how we're accomplishing that work.
Alrighty. So as many of you have been in this room previously regarding this topic, you have seen this before. This is basically the roadmap that HLC has set out in terms of what they expect us to accomplish by April 2020 when they come back for a focus visit, right? And part of that work has begun, right? We have been working hard all semester long, right? The assessment committee has been engaged in the work of developing the glossary and common language right around ideas of, the general education outcomes, as well as facilitating all of the workshops that have happened where you guys worked on the program level outcomes. All right. So, you guys, most of you are program level assessment developers, right? So you all have been engaged in the work of writing these programs. So that was phase one, is what you did starting this semester, right? Your first deliverable was to create those program level outcomes. And you have been engaged in this work of professional development, learning about the notion of assessment, what outcomes are, how they're written, and then we will continue our work as we go forward into next semester, where we start talking about how we take those program outcomes that you wrote and then develop maps to map them to the courses, into the general education outcomes, and to develop a plan for systematically assessing those. Okay? Coming up next year, right? Not next year as in next semester, but next academic year, right? Then some individuals, right? I think it's one person per department.
We're working that.
We're working on figuring out how that's going to work. But there will be one person who will be tasked with then implementing the assessment process. So developing those assessments and rolling them out, collecting the data and reporting back on those.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? This is a very dense slide, but I think most of you have seen it already, right? So we basically accomplished up to here, and then going forward as we move into next semester, next year, we move on. So this is the roadmap. Questions? Problems, concerns? Oh, and then finally, there's money at the end of the tunnel, right? Or there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, whichever way you want to think about it, right? So eventually, as that process is implemented, right? The assessments are done. You identify, right, areas that could use additional resources to improve student learning, right? That's the goal of assessment, right? Is always improving teaching and learning. And so perhaps as you implement your assessments and start assessing your outcomes, you identify areas where you could benefit from tools, resources, and things like that that might improve student learning. And that will be, that process, we'll sort it out and figure out, there'll be a peer review in the interim to try and figure out, to get resources to you until we can go through a full cycle and include it and tie it into comparative budgeting.
So this just gives you a little bit different format of the next steps in this process. So in terms of fall of 2018, right, the training that we talked about writing these outcomes, and the key deliverable this semester was finalizing our outcomes for both our gen ed and the program level. So the gen ed outcomes, that proposal did pass academic senate. So the assessment committee put forth a proposal to revise our general education outcomes. And that is currently waiting the vice president's approval, leadership's approval. So we're still waiting to hear back on that, but we anticipate that moving forward. And then our program level, right? That's program level outcomes were what we wrote and submitted this semester, and so those are currently going through the curriculum process. So now moving into spring of 2019. The training that we're going to be focusing on is we are really going to be focused on mapping those outcomes. So again, the course to the program, to the general education outcomes. We touched on that a little bit in the training this past semester to kind of give you a preview of what that's going to look like. We're going to be doing some training, and then we're also going to be doing, again, some of that hands-on workshop, right? We really want to replicate what we saw be successful this past semester. So we have received some really great feedback on those hands-on workshops, and so we're going to continue that model moving forward because we saw such great success with that this past semester. We want to talk a little bit more about kind of understanding these assessment processes and some of the revisions that we might be making. And we've talked about this, quite a few times this semester, but really ensuring that these assessment processes are working for what we're doing in our classrooms, right? Yeah.
Is the training going to be on Fridays again?
Well, I will not show you the schedule. So yeah, I will show you the whole schedule. Will be up there. But again, just emphasizing that we saw a lot of success this past semester. So we're not going to change up a whole lot in terms of how we're doing the training, some of the flexible options that we were giving individuals. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to build on the successes that we saw this past semester. But yeah, we'll have the full schedule. And we really want to talk about starting to talk about building effective assessments, and then also using rubrics, so designing, building, and using rubrics to assess artifacts of student learning. So the key deliverables for spring 2019 is going to be finalizing, finalizing course, program, and general education outcomes mapping. So those are going to be the key deliverables for this semester. And so when we have those deliverable dates, the deadlines I'm going to show you in just a moment, those are the key deliverables. There'll be a few other professional development opportunities that are going to be required for the stipend work. But that deliverable and the professional development that is offered in spring, I just want to be clear that wrapping up at the end of the spring semester is going to end the stipend deliverables and professional development for the role of program assessment plan developers, right? So we've talked about this in terms of that idea of the two phases. The first phase was this academic year, program assessment plan developers, and then starting with kind of moving into summer, this is going to be a transition to the role of assessment liaison, right? So that was the model that we rolled out at the beginning of the semester. The current stipend structure right now is the program assessment plan developers with the deliverables and the professional development at the end of spring semester. That will conclude that role, and we will start moving into that second phase with our assessment liaisons. And so during spring semester, we will be putting out a call for those who are interested, and there'll be more details. We'll do an open forum like this. I'll show you again the dates on that in just a moment. Very similar to this process, right? A call will go out for those who are interested, and then we will be moving forward into our second phase starting with summer with those individuals who will be in that role. So I just want to be clear on that as you see moving forward, right? In your current role, that's not the professional development we'll be moving into, but I wanted to give you all an idea of kind of what's to come so you can start thinking of in that role as an assessment liaison, the work that can be done moving forward. So then in the summer of 2019, we're really looking into doing training around building course level and program level assessments. Again, we saw a lot of success with the model of those hands-on workshops. So what we're really interested in doing is what we're calling assessment institutes. So having workshops or these assessment institutes held at various times over the summer to work around people's schedules. But the idea being that you would attend one of those workshops and walk away with a course level and program level assessment design ready to implement in the fall. So to have that hands-on work experience or work environment, to have expertise and support, right, as you're creating, designing those, and then have the assessments ready to be rolled out for fall semester. And so those, again, the deliverables for those would be the assessments devised and ready to implement. And then the fall, spring, we are really fully kicking off this entire, our new processes and our new structure. So the training in fall, and then into the spring of, fall 2019, and then spring of 2020 would be evaluating the assessment results, facilitating conversations around data analysis, and then making improvements as a result of that data.
And I think, and I think that probably is going to be the most exciting part of this work, is when we move into that phase of it. I think that's really when people are going to begin to feel, right, that this whole effort, this whole push is delivering results and really being able to have conversations about what's happening in our programs.
Excellent. And again, that deliverable, right, for that next, that's that whole next phase 2, we're talking about completing course program and gen ed assessments, and then also that idea of time resource allocation to assessment results. Do you have any questions on this slide, kind of what we're looking at moving forward, the next steps in kind of this project plan? I also want to make sure I'm clear of kind of when the break is, right? We see a lot of moving forward with the professional development that we're currently doing, but I just want to be clear of the expectations for this current role are ending with spring semester.
Yeah, there still remains work for you guys to do, right? Because you've completed, you've delivered, check mark here, finalized outcomes, right? So you'll be paid half your stipend tomorrow. No,
Friday. Tomorrow, Friday, no.
No, I know. I meant that way this semester. I have no idea what that
We can wish payday, yes, on the 7th, Friday.
So, and the second half will then be these
delivered.
deliverables. So you still have work to do, and then some of you, should you choose to engage in the next thing, may throw your hat into the ring and see if you're selected as a liaison.
All right, any questions? All right, we'll move forward to kind of the more detailed image here. And so this is the professional development schedule for spring. So we're going to kick off this professional development with the spring faculty workshop. So the full-time faculty workshop on January 18th, we'll be starting to talk about assessing general education outcomes. And so we're in conversations now about how to ensure that all of our faculty receive this information. So we're exploring different options of recording and doing some work around making sure that we share this information with our full faculty body so everyone can receive that professional development. But that is where we will be kicking off some of these conversations about assessing our general education outcomes. We will have an open forum on February 5th, so pretty early on in the semester, to talk about different options for how we can assess our general education outcomes moving forward. So the first part of the semester will be talking about how to assess our general education outcomes and engaging with as many faculty members as possible to have a dialogue around that and to make choices about how we might want to engage in that process. The first stipend required workshop will be on February 22nd. So this is going to be, again, very similar to the format this semester, one of the required trainings for the stipend work, and that's going to be the mapping workshop. So that's going to be held on the 22nd. Again, very similar to this past semester. It'll be 8:30 to 2:30 workshop. We'll be working on mapping the course, program, and gen ed outcomes. Then the deadline for those maps will be due to the assessment committee on March 1st. So kind of that deadline that's going to be built in. And then we're going to transition some of the training to talking about building effective assessment plans. And so the next required training for the stipend will be on March 7th. And that's an afternoon workshop, so 2 to 4 p.m. here in the CTE. Then there's going to be another open forum, again, similar to this format, on March 26th. And that is going to be where we'll be rolling out all of the information regarding the next phase in the stipend work with that next phase, talking about assessment liaisons, how we're going to transition into that role, and more information, more details on the work, the stipend, and how many individuals are going to be engaging in that work. And then we are transitioning towards kind of the end of the semester in April. We're going to have our Learning Improvement Summit on April 5th. So we are kind of rebranding our assessment day. And so we are going to focus on the idea of improving learning as a result of the information that we are collecting. So as we are collecting data and implementing these assessment plans, the focus to really be on what are the changes, what are the improvements that we are doing to student learning as a result of this data. And so that is going to be held on April 5th. And we're also, the assessment committee is discussing ways to expand the opportunities to engage to a full week. So to have multiple opportunities for engagement that week. So it's not just that one day on a Friday where I know there's going to be challenging with different schedules. So looking at multiple opportunities during that week for faculty, students, staff, administration to engage in this larger dialogue. So we are really looking at opportunities where that can be expanded. So there'll be more information on that coming, but think of the first week in April as that entire week being dedicated to topics of improving student learning. And then the deadline, if you are interested in pursuing that next phase, continuing to engage in this work with us, I hope you all are, right? So if you're interested in engaging and moving forward in this work to our second phase, the deadline to submit your name to your program chair and dean for that assessment liaison role will be April 19th. And so we hope that you'll continue to work with us and continue to engage in assessment work here at Triton. Then there's going to be another open forum on April 23rd, again, to kind of open up what's in store for the year ahead, to have a conversation and to answer any questions that you might have around as we really dive into the work of assessment, what that's going to look like. And then over the summer, we'll be kicking off our Summer Assessment Institutes. So over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that just really break it down, the required workshop, the required training, and then attendance on our Learning Improvement Summit, and then having the key deliverables be those curriculum mapped with the deadline on March 1st. Okay. Are there any questions on this piece?
assessment day, assessment week, how does it go into that schedule?
Yeah, so we are doing a little bit of rebranding around assessment day and assessment week. And we have it here, this Learning Improvement Summit. So the focus changing to how are we improving student learning as a result of the data that we're collecting. So that April 5th date, the Learning Improvement Summit, and then looking at, we'll actually be talking about that this week, of how to expand that into what kind of activities and professional development opportunities, but also spaces for dialogue for all of our faculty, our students, staff, and administration during that.
And Lauren, we'll be giving them this calendar, right, so that you can update yours. I mean, I know it's a lot of days.
Yeah.
It's slightly less dense though than this fall semester. So, right, if you survive fall semester, this should be a breeze.
Few trainings, few workshops, one deadline.
Yeah, and the deliverable, I think, is going to feel a little more natural, perhaps, right? Because you've already been through the process of writing the outcomes, right? And then you, as content area experts, are knowing what's occurring in your coursework and what's occurring in your program, and once you've had a chance to digest the new general education outcomes, you'll be able to make those links very easily. And I think it'll be productive, useful work actually doing this mapping. I know everyone in health careers already has this done, right? Because it's so integral to what you do. And I know it's probably very useful for you. I think it'll be useful across campus.
We learned a lot doing it.
Yeah, I think we found that already, right? As we kind of engaged in some of those conversations this semester, I think even just the idea was to really think about, oh, how does this all connect, right? And where might be some of the gaps? And as we're thinking about what are students learning as a result of being in our programs, right, to start thinking about, okay, where is that being taught? Where is that in our curriculum? So we saw a little bit of that already this semester, and so I'm really excited for those conversations. And just really meaningful conversations about our curriculum, what students are learning, and then heading into the conversation of how do we know that they're learning it. Yeah.
I think one of the objectives of assessment map is not only to determine the assessment time frame, but also opportunity to verify in the entire program whether the learning outcome makes sense when it comes to the time and courses being delivered and the situated the whole cohort still the program. So what I'm asking is, there may be opportunity when trying to work through the assessment mapping. They may come back and go, oh, this learning outcome should be X, Y, Z instead. So would you allow that type of, yet another round of refinement?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked about this a little bit too when we were doing the trainings for that, but this is an iterative process, right? So, I mean, the curriculum should be revised and updated, and the outcomes should be revised and updated. So absolutely, I think that we wrote these outcomes as we do the mapping. It should absolutely inform the curriculum, right? These processes are inextricably linked. So as you're doing assessment, right, as you're doing things that should influence and change the curriculum. And so I see this being an iterative process where one informs the other, and that's why we're currently in conversations with Julianne as chair of the curriculum committee of how to ensure that these documents live together and are linked together and are updated together, and these become not two separate processes, right, but these iterative processes that really influence each other. And overall, right, the goal of both of them is to improve the curriculum, improve student learning. I think that's, yeah.
So and just clarify, there was a PDF document for general education learning outcomes revision where it went from 9 to 5. So are all this going to be based on those 5 criteria areas that we're working on?
Yeah. So that proposal was voted at our last academic senate meeting. Was voted and was approved through the academic senate. But it is a proposal, right, that then gets sent to the vice president's office. And the vice president will make that official decision. So we are currently pending VP approval. So I anticipate that moving forward, right? But that's where we are currently. But yes, with that being approved, then what we're moving forward with next semester is working off those 5, which will become, they're not yet, they're proposed, but will become our new general education outcomes, and that's what we will be working with. Yes, great question. So yeah, we're in a little bit of a in-between phase before I can say it's official.
Do we know what platform we're using to do all this mapping?
So I anticipate we're going to be talking about kind of the documentation and housing that. I anticipate it's going to be in the form of like a Word document, and that's my anticipation, and that's what I believe we'll be working with. We've had a lot of conversations about housing and where this is going to live, and we've had conversations about technology being a tool. And I think where we are currently, we're still working out some of our processes. And so to make adjustments to TK20 at this point, where we may or may not be changing things, I think that moving forward with something that's a little bit more nimble until we have it solidified and we know what we need moving forward. So yeah, right now we're going to be, I anticipate that being like a Word document that we're working off of and will be submitted. But as we're working out the processes, we'll have clear directions on where those are being saved, where they're being housed, how to turn them in. Great questions. If any other questions on the dates, the timelines, the work that we're accomplishing?
You all look terrified. I feel like I'm in class
No, we're
again.
just all exhausted.
All these faces, just like.
Yeah, end of the
just like-
semester, right? We're wrapping up. We're still close.
Yeah,
Trees.
but-
One more week.
Lisa, maybe to paint a picture, like, there are so many directions we could go with the mapping, but I think we've sort of distilled down to something that's fairly elegant and literally is just a chart. Maybe it'll be a little more like layered, but it visually, it should be very illustrative, I suppose, in a way, right? TK20 is,
to that.
right, because there's no,
There's
right,
no
there's no-
overview of all of them,
Yeah.
seeing them
Yeah.
literally.
right? You make a link and then you can't see that link anymore, right? And I think what needs to happen is to have it laid out visually in an elegant way where it's very obvious where the holes are
Exactly.
and where the links are.
Right. So we're gonna kick it off with this tool, right? If it's a Word document, right? Using this tool, we will consistently ask for feedback, right? How it's going, is that tool helpful to you, right? Is it representing what the information that you need? And I anticipate, right, changes moving forward. So we're going to start with something like this, and then as we move forward, we'll adapt these processes to make sure that it's the most useful to faculty, and also is meeting the different needs across the institution, right? And so ensuring that we're responding to different areas of the institution, we're including concerns or information that needs to be included from across the institution. So we're going to start with one form as we roll it out, and then we will be responding to as we hear the needs for the documentation for you in your different areas. So I, again, really anticipate this whole process being very iterative, being responsive to feedback, and making sure that all pieces, the documentation, reports, all of that are useful to you. Because if it's not useful, you're not going to use them.
And I know we've said this in previous fora, but they're titled faculty open forum for that reason, right? It is intended to be open and transparent. That faculty can come and faculty can say, hey, that's great, or I think you're heading the wrong direction, right? We have been fairly responsive to feedback. In general, I think people are just like grateful that there's some leadership, right? There's very strong leadership in that. But if, right, you have a suggestion or feedback, by all means, that's the purpose of these. They're supposed to be not only informative to you, but informative to us as well, if you have feedback.
And just to pitch, right, we will be determining the assessment committee meetings at our next meeting on Thursday, but I anticipate publishing those. So if you have any interest in attending a meeting or want to just kind of come see what we're up to, join a meeting, join the committee, right? Any of those things, please feel free to do that, right? We, as many people as involved in this work as possible. Right, this is the heart of faculty work here, curriculum, assessment, and instruction. So please feel free to engage as much as you would like and to make sure that your voice and your input is heard. And we really, really appreciate you doing that.
What time is that meeting?
The meeting on Thursday is at 1 p.m. over in the library. And then that's our last committee meeting of this semester. And then, like I said, I anticipate publishing all the spring meetings so we can have as many people engaged in that process as possible.
Are they always at 1 o'clock on Thursdays?
I just sent out a doodle to my committee and maybe hear from everyone's responses. So hoping to set the meeting schedule on Thursday. That's not set in stone. We have to respond to faculty's teaching schedules. Yeah, I'll let you know, TBD. All right, so with that being said, thank you all again so much for your work this semester. It was really rewarding to engage with all of you and look forward to you again next semester. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna get it right in the same office. What's over? Yeah, classic.
No, I just, right,